Hey, so I am officially on testosterone today, 25th of January 2012. So this is my 1 month on testosterone. I have had quite a few changes, just small ones.
2 months on T video. I've had a definite voice drop in the last month. This is my 3 months on testosterone update. My skin got really bad. Today is my 4 months on testosterone. The hair on my arms has increased. I sweat more. This is my 8 months on T update. I do have one proper facial hair now. I'm now 18 months on T. My face shape has changed a little bit.
I'm exactly 14 years on testosterone. Testosterone will change pretty much everything. Hey, it's Jamie, welcome back to another video of Testosterone channel. I don't know, welcome either way. I'm very glad to have you here, and I feel like I'm saying that so quick at this point that you cannot even tell what I'm saying. But today, we're here to talk about everything that testosterone changes, which is pretty much everything. So I'm a trans man, and I started testosterone on the 25th of January 2012 when I was 17 years old, which means if you are watching this the day it comes out, I'm exactly 14 years on testosterone. If you're watching it after it comes out, then I'm 14 years and a bit on testosterone. And I want to give you a rundown of everything, or near enough everything, that testosterone will change, or could change, because it's not guaranteed. Before we get into all of the general changes that can happen, I wanted to give a little bit of background of my experience on testosterone, because over the past 14 years, I have been on 3 different types. I really wanted to shop the field. Is that the saying?
I'm gonna say no.
I don't know. It took me a while to find what worked for me. And just in case it's useful for anybody watching, this is a rundown of the 3 different types I've been on and my general experiences with each, and why I changed. For the first year I was on testosterone, I was on Testosterone, which is a gel form that you put directly on your skin once a day. It's basically like rubbing hand sanitizer on your arms, legs, or stomach, depending on where you put it. And some pros are that there are no needles involved, which is great if you're not keen on needles. I don't mind them, but if you are not a fan, fantastic. No needles. It's also really easy to travel with. It's just a bottle or sachets, and they're typically under the milliliter limit that you can travel with, but you can also just take your prescription and show them. But I've never had an issue. I've traveled with my Testosterone and hand luggage a lot, and nobody's ever mentioned it. I once got asked, is this under 100 milliliters? And I was like, yes, and then it was fine. It can also lead to the most consistent testosterone levels throughout the day, because you get like peaks and troughs over a 24-hour period, which is more in line with what cis men would experience. But some cons: it can be annoying to apply every day, and if you forget, and if you're not gonna be able to remember it and get in the routine, it's probably not gonna work very well for you. And you also have to be really careful with skin-to-skin contact with other people, because you do not want to be transferring that testosterone to others. Basically, I stopped taking Testosterone after a year on it because I just felt like some of my changes were maybe a bit slow, and there were some things that were not stopping, as in a particular monthly occurrence was not stopping, and I really wanted it to, and my T levels were consistently just a little bit low. So I switched to Libido, which is a slow release form of testosterone. So I went from no needles to like the biggest, thickest needle form of testosterone you can go on. It's basically a very thick liquid that is injected every 3-ish months, give or take a couple weeks, depending on how your body deals with it. And it typically does need to be injected by a medical professional due to the thickness of the liquid. It can make it a little bit awkward to work travel plans around. I did used to constantly book my appointment last minute and then never time it up right to get my libido with my appointment. The admin of it stressed me out. But it is really nice to not have to worry for several months, and I found that a lot of my changes started to increase, like body hair, fat redistribution, monthly occurrence stopped literally after my first shot of libido, and it did increase my testosterone levels into a typical range. But if I'm honest, after a few years, I got really fed up with the injections, and I got to the point where I was happy with my body shape, and my body hair and my facial hair had started coming in really nicely. And I found that because libido had quite a slow rise after you took it, and then it kept you like steady for like 2.5 months, and then you had a week of it dropping, I did not feel that great in the week after my shot and the week before, if that makes sense. So I decided to go back on gel, but a slightly higher dose, and I stayed like that for a further 9 years, where I had routine blood tests every 6 to 12 months, and I was always told your T levels are fine, it's all good. And I guess for me, I didn't notice if there were any slowing downs of changes, because I'd already experienced a lot of changes and things did carry on going. But what I did find out a year ago after moving doctors was, for the first time in 9 years, I was told, yes, your testosterone levels are fine, but your estrogen levels are really high, like higher than we'd want them to be for like a trans guy on testosterone, but even higher than we'd expect them to be not for a trans guy, basically. That could explain why there were a couple niggles I had about being back on gel. So I have switched to Testosterone, which is a kind of mid-release. I take it every 3 weeks, I can inject it at home, the liquid is a lot thinner than libido. The needles are a lot smaller and it's not something that bothers me. I don't have to book appointments. I just have to go pick up my prescription and they give me 4 boxes at a time, which is 3 months. So it's actually very easy. And I like not having to think about it every day. And all the niggles I had have sorted themselves out. My testosterone levels are good. My estrogen levels have come right down. So it's all good. I'm very happy. I will say that I was a bit shocked after having my hormone levels tested. At least every year for the past 9 years, nobody had told me that my estrogen levels were too high. And I'm pretty sure they weren't just high randomly for one blood test, because they tested it again like a couple months after just to make sure that it was consistent, and it was. And so I'm like, no, just nobody told me, right? I've been having a couple issues with gel and nobody said anything. So I guess that's just like a little, it's not just about how high your T is, but also how high your estrogen is. My other option would have been to go on an estrogen blocker and stay on gel, but I preferred the idea of just taking one medication. Is less to keep on top of. So that's a little bit of my background and experience with testosterone and how I found it for the past 14 years. So I guess now is the time to talk about the changes. But before we get onto the changes, one thing I wanted to mention is none of these changes are guaranteed. Even though most of them will happen to some extent for pretty much everybody that takes testosterone, you're just not guaranteed to experience everything or experience everything to the same level as somebody else, because it will depend on a lot of factors and a lot of it will come down to your genetics. So with this following list, just be aware that it's probably going to happen, at least to some extent for you, but it is not guaranteed. So let's get on with hearing about all the changes. I'm going to start with hair, because this is quite a big one. The amount of hair you gain, where you gain it, how quickly you might gain it, and the hair that you might lose. All of these things depend on your genetics, and I guess also your testosterone dose, but this list is based on an assumption that you will take a typical dose and have testosterone ranges that are within the typical range. Obviously, if you go on a lower dose and deliberately have lower testosterone, everything's going to happen to a lesser extent and much slower. Basically, if the men in your family are super hairy, you have a good shot at being super hairy as well. You could literally end up growing hair all over your body from your toes to your shoulder, even coming out of your nostrils. And your eyebrows might even get bushier as well. Mine certainly have, and now I need to trim them. I think body hair, facial hair in particular, is something that a lot of trans guys are very excited about, but I think it's one of the big things that you need to have the most patience over. For most people, some people will get a glorious beard and a full chest of hair within the first year on testosterone, but that's quite uncommon. For most people, it is a process that takes several years at least. My beard took about 3 years to actually start coming in, and then it just gradually carried on filling in, and I'm still pretty convinced it's filling in now. I've got like a couple patches, my cheeks are a little bit sparse, but I think they're coming in. I'm determined. My chest hair took the longest, and then leg hair was the quickest. Oh, and butt hair. Oh my god, don't get me started on the butt hair. I think there's this big expectation when you start testosterone that's like, yes, I can't wait for my glorious beard, and then you just get glorious ass crack hair first. And I am still getting hairier and hairier now. Like, my shoulders still getting hairier. I swear I'm gonna have to trim my ears one day. It's not happened yet, but I'm sure it's coming. Anyway, then the other side of hair on testosterone is of course hair loss. And as a trans guy, we can inherit the baldness gene from either side of our family. So likelihood is, if you have a bald family member anywhere, like dad, grandfather on either side, uncle on either side, brother, cousin, somebody that's relatively close in relation to you and is bald, you are likely to experience at least some hair loss, but not guaranteed, of course. The next change I want to talk about is voice. I feel like this is the big daddy of changes for trans guys. This is like the one. All the montages of voice dropping and everything is something that people look forward to a lot. And it's probably one of the biggest changes that happens relatively fast for a lot of people. So it can happen within the first couple months and then carry on dropping for the next several years. I will warn you though, you may sound like a voice cracking squeaky chicken teenage boy.
Hair on my arms has increased
for quite some time, like maybe 6 months or so, maybe even up to a year. So just as a quick comparison, although you would have seen a little bit at the beginning, as a reminder, this is what my voice sounded like when I was pre-teen.
Hey, so I am officially on testosterone today.
And obviously this is what my voice sounds like now, 14 years later. For me, my voice was the main thing that meant I was misgendered before I started testosterone, and it was at around the 3 months on T-marks where my voice sounded like this.
This is my 3 months on testosterone update.
That was when I stopped being misgendered, and that's when I could really hear it myself, and that's when I started feeling my voice. That's a weird thing that I didn't hear many people talk about. You won't just be able to hear an audible difference, your voice will also feel different in your throat and your chest. There's a vibration that happens when your voice drops. It's quite pleasing. I enjoy it. The next change I wanted to talk about is muscle mass. So on testosterone, muscle mass and strength can be easier to gain, but you will have to put in a work for a majority of these changes. But honestly, even without putting much work in, testosterone will cause some changes to happen. A lot of trans guys want to broaden their shoulders and their chests to change any kind of curviness that may be apparent and just be more of that like upside down Dorito shape, and that's definitely something that is easier to achieve on testosterone. I personally have worked out relatively lightly or not at all for the past 14 years. I went through like a 2-year period where I was going to the gym reasonably consistently, and I did see some good gains, but then COVID hit and it threw my routine and I have not gotten back into it, and that is totally on me. But it's just not a priority in my life, to be honest, and that's why I've not done it. And even with that kind of minimal and on-off working out, I've seen a big change in my body shape and also my physical strength of what I can actually lift. The change in muscle mass, and this also kind of goes with fat redistribution, which we'll get on with in a minute, is that some trans guys experience an increase in their feet and hand size. So some trans guys will go up like half a shoe size or something. This is not because your feet or your hands have actually grown bigger in terms of the bones. They're not going to get longer, but you may find that with general body composition changes like muscle mass and fat, your hands and feet can get a bit thicker. I hope that makes sense. So they can seem bigger. So talking of body composition, fat redistribution is the next change we're going to talk about. So fat redistribution paired with this increased muscle mass is the double whammy for a more masculine body shape. Testosterone can make you gain fat in different places, so you're more likely to gain it on the front of your stomach rather than your hips and your thighs. It can also give you a more angular face shape, so losing a little bit of like the fat from your cheeks and increasing your jawline definition. Without relying on like stereotypes and stuff, you'll basically look less soft. I don't really know how to describe it other than that. Just a lot of people, when they start taking testosterone, lose a lot of like the roundness and softness in their face and body shape. So that is something that will typically happen. Now we're going to get on to some of the smaller, more obscure changes. And the first one I want to start with, because it's actually not that obscure, but it's not one that I saw spoken about a lot when I started. There's a lot more information out there now. In the past 14 years, the information has increased a lot on the internet about testosterone. But one that took me by surprise was the smell. Nobody really warned me about how testosterone can change the way you smell. I smell so much worse than I did before. I need to wash my t-shirts a lot more regularly. Like I can wear them twice and then they will need a wash, otherwise they will smell. Whereas before, I could wear a t-shirt for a while and it would be fine. And this occurs even though I shower daily and put on antiperspirant and deodorant and all of that stuff every single day as well. And I don't just smell worse, but I smell different. You might also sweat more as well. So all of this lovely stuff to look forward to. And then the strangest thing about smell is your pee. Testosterone will make your pee smell different and stronger and probably bad. And something I've learned very recently being on Sustanon, the day or two after my shower, my pee smells really bad and really strong. I don't know what is going on. And then it kind of gets better. But yeah, lots of smell changes to look forward to. Next up, we have bone structure. Testosterone is going to give you those cheekbones. No, it won't. It will not change that kind of thing. But it can lead to increased bone mineral density. This is not a visible change that you're going to be able to see in yourself or that other people will be able to see in you. But it basically means that your bones will have a higher average amount of calcium and other minerals, making them stronger and thicker. But it won't change your outward appearance. It is more of an internal change. And now quite an important one is emotional changes. Because when I first started, there were all kinds of myths floating around about emotional changes that
you're going to take testosterone and you're going to become some like angry, like roid, ragey person, and you're going to be completely different in terms of your personality
and all of that stuff. But that doesn't happen. Testosterone will have an impact on your emotions, but it's not going to make you an entirely different person. So a lot of this can be down to mood swings when you first start testosterone, just getting into the groove of it. Maybe some mood swings with your like peaks and troughs of your T levels, depending on what type you're on. Your levels might be too high or too low, or you might be spacing your shots too far apart, that kind of thing, and that can lead to some mood changes. So just keep an eye on your testosterone levels and make sure you get things checked if you're not feeling like things are right. And then generally, away from just like based on your testosterone levels and when you're taking it, just things that can change overall is some people do report finding it harder to cry, and testosterone can increase feelings and experiences of anger for people who already experience that. It's not going to make you an entirely different person. It's not going to make you some aggressive person if that's not the way you already were. It can change some things, but you are still going to be you. A little bit of a weird one next, blood and metabolism. You may experience a higher red blood cell count. This potential change change is one of the reasons why when you're on testosterone, you should be getting regular blood tests about once a year, just to make sure that everything is ticking along nicely. Basically, higher red blood cell count makes your blood thicker, and thicker blood can increase your risk of clots, stroke, and heart attack. This is something cis men also experience. So if your red blood cell does get abnormally high, then your doctor may lower your testosterone dose or make some other suggestions, but it's just this is one of the reasons why it's really important to be regularly monitored whilst taking testosterone. Some studies have also found that maybe taking testosterone might have an impact on increasing cholesterol, but this one is a little bit more debatable than the red blood cell count one, but still something that's worth keeping an eye on. And the final chunk of changes we're going to be talking about today are reproductive changes. I think the big one here that is a cause for celebration for many trans men out there is your period stopping. This can often happen very, very quickly. For some people, it will literally happen after their first dose of testosterone. For other people, it can take about 6 months, but I think if it doesn't happen within 6 to 12 months, it is recommended to speak to a doctor because there could be something up with your testosterone levels, maybe your estrogen levels. Like I said, I started off on Testosterone for my first year, which did not stop periods, and then libido immediately did. Going back on gel was a bit of a risk, but it didn't come back in the way that I thought it might. There was like the occasional going through the motions of symptoms, and sometimes the odd little thing.
Surprise, bitch. I bet you thought you'd seen the last of me.
But not like it was on my first year or pre-testosterone at all. And then since I started Sustanon, absolutely nothing. Back to how it was on libido. Then, without getting too descriptive and anatomical, because YouTube doesn't like that very much, testosterone can cause lower growth. Basically, things change in the genital area a bit. And this is actually commonly one of the very first physical changes that can happen. It happens very quickly. So an increase in growth and an increase in sensitivity and also libido, which is welcome for some and less welcome for others, but just something to be aware of. And then after a bit longer on testosterone, some people can experience dryness down there and vaginal atrophy. It sounds a lot worse than it is. It's also something that a lot of cis women experience when going through menopause, and there is medication and things that can help with that, so definitely speak to your doctor if you feel like you're having any of those experiences. And actually, this atrophy, alongside potential dips in fertility, is some of the biggest points that transphobes attack trans men on and be like,
You can't take testosterone, it's bad for your health, it causes this, this, and this.
But in reality, it's not the big scary deal they make it out to be. And speaking of fertility, this can decrease for some people on testosterone, and then obviously for a majority of people, testosterone will stop periods, but taking T doesn't make you infertile. This is a big myth that used to be spread around a lot. Like even when I started testosterone, I was professionally advised to freeze my eggs because testosterone was likely to impact my long-term fertility. But for a vast majority of people, stopping testosterone will mean that you'll be able to go through egg collection and IVF or pregnancy or that kind of thing, and it shouldn't have a permanent impact on your fertility. Now, talking of permanent, these are all the changes I wanted to go through, and obviously some of these changes are very permanent, and some of them are not permanent, and some of them are kind of in between. So permanent changes are basically ones that will stick around, and they're part of who you are now, even if you stop taking testosterone, and then non-permanent changes are ones that will reverse, or at least like reverse partially if you were to stop taking testosterone. So permanent changes include things like voice deepening, facial and body hair, although if you do stop taking T, it will likely grow in slower, and you won't have any further increase in your body and facial hair. Lower growth is permanent, and head hair loss as well. Reversible changes are things like fat redistribution and muscle mass, so your body composition can reverse back to being more similar to how it was when you were pre-testosterone. Skin oiliness, which is actually maybe something I should have mentioned in changes, your skin will get oilier. A lot of people can get spotty. It's kind of like going through puberty all over again. And then period stopping, if you stop testosterone, periods will likely start up again. Emotional changes will reverse, and your smell will go back to how it was before. And as a little bonus, here are some things that testosterone won't change. Height. If your growth plates have fused, you will not grow any taller, even if you start taking testosterone. Testosterone will not make you taller. It cannot make your bones get any longer. Hip bone width. This is another bone change. Whilst we spoke about testosterone increasing bone mineral density, it will not actually change the shape or length or size of your bones. So that's why your height will stay the same. Your hip bone width, whatever that has developed to, will not shrink. Although with fat redistribution, your hips can appear smaller. And then there are also genetically limited traits as well. So whilst testosterone can cause a lot of changes like your voice and your facial hair and body hair and fat redistribution and muscle composition and everything like this, you are still going to be within the confines of your genetics, like how deep your voice gets, how full your beard gets, how hairy your chest is, how easy you find it to gain muscle, because some people respond better to gym training than others. Yes, there are also genetic limitations to what testosterone can help you achieve. But yeah, in reality, although most of these changes will happen for pretty much most people to some extent at least, how much they happen, when they happen, how long it takes them to reach their texture, fullness. There's kind of general time frames, and I gave some of them initially, like you can start seeing some of the first changes within like a couple weeks, and then others can take years. And a lot of the changes and how quickly they happen and how much they happen will come down to your genetics and your hormone dose and hormone levels. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that is the rundown of pretty much everything testosterone will change, what changes are permanent, what changes are not permanent, and what it can't change. If there's anything you wanted to add to this video, please let me know. I just hope this can be useful. I wanted to put this out there. I made a video kind of similar to this maybe a decade ago when I was 4 years on T, and so I just thought it would be nice to make a little update, put the information out there fresh from a perspective of being on testosterone longer and also trying out different types of testosterone. So yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments below. I hope you like this video. Think about giving a thumbs up and subscribing if you want to, but no pressure, and you're going to see some names up the screen of my wonderful, beautiful Patreons. I really appreciate all the support over there. It really helps me continue creating this content. You can go check it out if you want to see some behind the scenes stuff and just a couple extra bits and pieces, which I'm hopefully going to be adding to over this next year, so keep your eyes peeled. And I want to say a massive shout out to my top tier Patreons: Tig, Kia Tasha, Night Soul, Sugar Joe, Elden K, Nesta, The Third Hatman, Max Mix Mods, Della Nervin, River Shampoo, Chloe, Iona Balash, TNS Mum, Sally Drew, Randy, Alba, Marv Mallow, Rachel Raptor, Jesse Amos, Gosco, Sienna Lamb, Slayer, Sarah Hobbs, The Paisley Prince, Riley Ray, I ran out of breath, Riley Ray, Build Up the Shuite, 888_Mars, Claire Henley, and Marin. Thank you so much. Your support means a lot to me. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you all watching this video, so thank you. Yes, and much love, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. I messed that up really badly, but bye bye.